Welcome to the 70s, a bustling decade that encompassed a plethora of interesting and exciting events. In the United States, we see the rise of disco, the uncovering of Nixon's many scandals, the first resignation from office by any president of the United States, the introduction of an extremely popular and influential music and films, the fight for equality by many oppressed groups, a rise in protest, the people losing faith in their governments and leaders, and the end of a long war. We are going to go into more detail and break down some of the aspects of the 70s that will be found to be most influential. President Richard Nixon was the 37th President of the United States, starting his presidency on January 20th of 1969. He was arguably the most disliked president in the United States. This was primarily due to the large number of scandals and his eager position on war. The most famous scandal in the United States was Watergate, named after the hotel at which it happened, and it led to the climactic resignation of President Nixon on August 9th, 1974. This all started on June 17th of 1972, when 5 men were arrested for breaking into the Democratic National Convention, suspected to be working with Nixon. The scandal lasted a long while new information continued to rise. Vietnam was split and divided into two down the 17th parallel, South Vietnam and North Vietnam. The north side was controlled by Ho Chi Minh, who was a communist leader, and created a communist guerrilla movement known as the Viet Cong. The Viet Cong would go into the south side and force communism. In 1955, the United States got involved for the first time when President John F. Kennedy sent support troops to train the South Vietnamese to defend themselves. The United States also provided backup for their armies with military force from being forced into being a communist country. By 1968, the draft had started in the United States. After thousands of soldiers had lost their lives, a large amount of people began to protest in the 70s over the war in Vietnam. The United States pulled out all forces in South and Northern Vietnam on April 30th of 1975 related to the protests. Start when you're ready.
George Lucas directed, wrote, and produced this hit film Star Wars, which starred Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, Harrison Ford as Han Solo, Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia Organa, Alec Guinness as Ben Kenobi, and James Earl Jones as the voice of Darth Vader. The smash hit Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, was a film about a young man named Luke Skywalker who desperately wanted to join the rebellion to fight against the Empire. He later receives a message from a princess claiming that she has plans to destroy the Death Star. Luke is on a mission to give the plans to the rebellion so they can destroy the Death Star, but he can't achieve this plan without help from a Jedi Knight, a cocky pilot, a Wookiee, and 2 droids. This cult classic came out on May 25th, 1977, and the filming locations from Star Wars A New Hope were in Guatemala, Tunisia, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Mexico. After the success of American Graffiti, George Lucas was determined to create a space opera film. He wanted to create a different kind of science fiction film, a more fun one that was meant for 14 or 15-year-olds. He and his partner Gary Kurtz pitched the idea to many studios but were rejected by United Artists and Universal Studios. But 20th Century Fox offered them money due to the success of American Graffiti. The 2 drafts were a bit dense and tonally imbalanced, but after each draft, the story picked up and got better. After the 4th draft, Lucas felt that the film was ready to begin shooting, so he told Fox that the estimated budget would be $18 million, but they offered $7.5 million instead. Lucas and Kurtz were so anxious to begin shooting, so they immediately took the deal. Our mural took great influence from Star Wars by using the colors red and blue to symbolize the people versus Nixon, as the people are blue and Nixon is red. We also took Darth Vader's head and placed it on Nixon's head to show that he was as bad as Darth Vader.
Nice. That was very...
And And now that we have given you a deeper look inside some of the most influential events of the 1970s, we can now explain the artistic choices we made for the mural right in front of you. To explain the artistic choices of the mural, we must break down the main aspects of the mural. The large peace sign is representative of the Vietnam War and the peace wanted by most of the American population. The phrases that line the inner edge of the peace sign are all things that were written on the signs at anti-Vietnam War protests, including the very well-known "Love Not War." On top of the peace sign is a portion about Nixon. It shows Nixon in one of his more famous moments. This mural is fairly political, and at the time, the Impeach Nixon campaign was quite popular due to many obstructions of justice Nixon was responsible for. We thought it was kind of funny to have Nixon pointing to impeach himself. Then he has a Vader helmet to establish his spot as the bad guy. Because we want to show a distinction of the good versus evil, which in this case is the people versus Nixon. Finally, the date on his chest, August 8, 1974, is when he formally announced his resignation as President of the United States. The third aspect of the mural is clearly the lightsabers. As we previously stated, we want to show a very clear distinction between good and evil, and Star Wars already does that very well. It also helps that Star Wars was released in the 1970s. To show the difference of good and evil, the only colors used in the mural have been sourced from the red, which is the bad, and the blue, which is the good, of the lightsabers. The peace sign impeach Nixon words and eyes on the Vader helmet. And of course, the Vader helmet on Nixon helps tie Star Wars into the rest of the image.